Hey crafters! Today I'll be showing you how I made this miniature kitchen. I started by taking a thin piece of MDF wood and cut it to size. This will be the back wall of the kitchen. If you have a dollhouse and you want to glue the upper cabinet straight to the wall of your dollhouse, then you can skip this back piece. I'm starting with the bottom cabinets by cutting a square dowel in 2 pieces. One long for the bottom, one short for the top, 6 small in between drawers, 6 slightly longer for the sides. This is the second top piece, and lastly the piece for under the sink. I then laid out my design before gluing it together. I made 3 sets of drawers, a space for the sink, a cupboard under the sink, and a place for the stove. I made sure to make the cabinets the same width as the back piece. I then cut out a drawer and cabinet fronts fitted to the spaces. I made 3 small, 3 medium, and 3 large drawer fronts, followed by 2 cabinet drawers for under the sink. As you can see, I'm using wood that isn't as thick as my square dowels. This is because I want the detail on the edges to be flush with the face of the cabinets around. However, this does not apply to the 3 small drawers as they don't have detailing on them and therefore are the same thickness as the surround. Now it's time for the edge detail on the drawers and cabinets. To do this, I cut a 5mm wide strip of 1mm thick wood. The easiest way I found to do this was lay it in place and mark it with my X-acto knife and then cut it off on my mat. This makes it a snug fit and looks really clean. Once I have all my pieces, I lay them in place and glue them down. Now it's time for the sink. I'm making a large undermounted farmhouse sink for this project. I start out by gluing the sides together and measuring out the bottom piece. Using sandpaper, I curve the 2 front edges of the sink. Before gluing the bottom in place, I make a round indent in the middle for the drain and paint it silver. I paint it before I glue it down because it's a lot easier to paint the circle without the sides in the way. Now it's time for the structure. Starting with the sides, I made 2 rectangular pieces that are taller than the cabinet fronts and cut out a space for the toe kick. Make a long bottom piece and glue it to the sides. Cut a long strip of wood and glue it to the front for the toe kick. Unfortunately, I don't have a better clip of the countertop, but all I did was measure out a piece that is as long as the cabinet structure and back piece, and then slightly deeper than the bottom cabinets, so it gets a little bit of overhang. Then measure out where the sink will go and cut out a space for it. Remember to leave an edge that covers 3 sides of the sink to make it an undermounted sink. I painted the cabinet fronts and frame white. Make sure to have all the pieces separated when you paint them so that they don't get painted shut. You might notice that some of the clips are out of sequence. I've tried to group them together so that the video isn't too erratic jumping back and forth. For example, I put all the clips of me making the oven all in one go, instead of jumping from the oven to the sink and back again. I want all the drawers and cabinets to work in this kitchen, so I'm making the inside of the drawers now. I glue the sides to the bottom piece and then glue it to the back of the face of the cabinet. When making the inside of the drawers, you can either make them the same size as the front of the drawer if you want a snug fit, or you can make them slightly smaller. I prefer to make them smaller on the inside because it reduces the risk that they might get stuck, and you don't need to worry about being too precise when you make them, as you have more forgiving measurements. I made 3 sizes with different heights on the sides depending on how deep the drawer is. Originally, I wasn't going to make an all-white kitchen, but I couldn't find the exact color I was going for. I also contemplated making the bottom cabinets a different color to the top. I want to make an island to go with this kitchen at some point, so I might paint that a different color. Let me know if you want to see a video on that. If you wanted to have a wood exterior, you could stain the cabinets instead of painting them. There are a million things you could do with this kitchen to get a different look, but in the end, I played it safe. For the inside of the structure, I made 6 supports for the drawers and 4 side supports. The 4 supports go on either side of the oven and sink. Start by gluing the frame to the back structure, then glue the supports in place. As you can see, I painted the space under the sink white, but you can skip this step if you'd prefer the wood interior. Time to install the cabinet under the sink. To do this, I'm using the pin method. Using my handheld drill, I drill a hole straight through the frame above and below where the doors will sit. After that, I put the doors in place and carefully push a pin through the hole in the frame and into the door itself. I don't push it very deep into the doors. Once all 4 pins are in place, I test the doors before cutting the pins off. To measure how far I push them, I place my thumb at the edge of the wood and hold it there while I pull the pin out. Here you can see how deep it was. I then take pliers and cut the rest of the pin off. Once you've done this to all of the pins, place them back in the holes, but don't push them all the way in yet. Make sure to test the doors one last time and see if they still work properly. Because once you push them all the way in, you can't get them out again. If everything works, I use the top of my pliers to carefully push them all the way in. Now it's time for the oven! So I've started by making a strip of wood for the top that I paint silver and then glue to the frame. I then take 2 pieces of wood for the door and cut out a square for the window. The back piece is thicker than the front piece, and I've cut a sliver off the bottom of the front piece. Paint the sliver silver and paint the doors black. Once done, you can glue the sliver to the bottom of the back piece. Taking some thin clear plastic, I sandwich it between the front and the back piece and glue them together. For the inside of the oven, just make a box that is slightly smaller than the opening of the oven. Don't add the top yet if you want to make details on the inside. I got a bit ahead of myself while filming and I had to remove it to be able to reach the inside better. Paint the inside black. As you can see, I made a tiny little edge that sits on the inside of the oven. This is to give the door something to stop it from leaning inwards. If you want to give the inside of the oven details, you can add an oven rack holder. I used metal wire and bent it into this shape with pliers. I used super glue to glue it to the inside. Once that is done, you can glue on the top and then glue the oven in place on the structure. In case you're wondering, I use scrap pieces for the top and bottom of this, so that is why the pieces are sticking out of the back. I just didn't remove them as you won't be able to see them later. For the handle, I wanted something a bit more sturdy, so I took a toothpick and sanded down the sides so that it would be flat instead of round. I then measured it against the oven door to see how long I wanted it to be and cut it off. I also cut 2 short pieces and glued one to each end. Once dry, I painted it silver. To install the doors, you can use pins at the bottom to make a hinge. Use the same method as before. I removed the bottom drawers while I did this. To finish off the front, make a strip of wood to go under the oven. Leave a small gap so the oven can still open and close and paint it white. For the final detail, glue on the handle and cut and glue a black rectangle for the touchscreen display. I made the display using regular paper that I painted black and then gave a coat of gloss varnish. We're now done with the oven! Apply a coat of paint to the toe kick before moving on to the sink. If you haven't glued in the bottom of the sink yet, then do that now, and then glue the sink in place. Make sure that you don't glue the sink down if you haven't installed the hinges on the doors yet. If you want, you can add a coat of gloss varnish to the sink to give it more shine. If you decided to make your drawers a bit smaller like I did, then you might want to glue a small piece of wood to act like a stop, so that the drawers don't accidentally get pushed too far in. I added this to the inside of the cabinets as well. Speaking of cabinets, it's time for the upper cabinets now. Using the same method as for the lower cabinets, using a square dowel, make 2 dowels for the inside dividers, 4 longer dowels for the outsides, 2 short dowels for the top and bottom of the single cabinet, and 2 long dowels for the top and bottom of the main 3 cabinets. Lay it out and glue it all together. I made the cabinets above the sink a bit wider to keep it symmetrical with the bottom cabinets. To make the doors, I first cut out 4 rectangles to fit the inside frame, and then cut them in the middle to make 8 doors. Add the edge detail like we did before. Glue the sides, top and bottom to the cabinets around to make the structure. Paint the cabinets and surround white. Install the hinges. If you want to add shelves to the upper cabinets, make sure that they don't reach all the way to the front of the cabinet so that there is a little bit of space for the door to swing open. Normally you would have 2 shelves in the upper cabinets, but I'm only using 1 in the main 3 cabinets. I'm doing this because I want a lot of space for taller items, but you can add as many shelves as you'd like. I'm adding 2 to the single cabinet on the right. To make the handles, I cut some thin strips of wood and glued supports to the ends. Paint them black and glue them on using super glue. These handles aren't standard size. I've made them oversized because I prefer the look. But if you want, you can make them shorter or use another kind of handle if you prefer a different look. Moving on to the countertop and backsplash, I used peel and stick marble paper and folded in the edges around the countertop. Using scissors, I made a cut in each corner to make it easier. Once done, I added a hole for the faucet using a handheld drill. For the backsplash, I measured out where the cabinet sat on the back piece so that I had a guide to follow. If you accidentally put the backsplash too high up, it will be seen inside the upper cabinets when you open them. As you can see, I've also painted the back piece white where the cabinets will sit to cover up the less attractive color of the back piece. I made the peel and stick a little longer than needed so that I could wrap the excess around the edges to the back, so that I would have a clean looking edge. If you don't want to use peel and stick, you can paint it a solid color, freehand paint marble, print out or use marble cardstock instead, or any other design or pattern you'd like. I'm not too happy with the colors on the cabinets and the countertop. The cabinets are warm white and the countertops turned out a lot more cool tone than I had expected. To make the faucet, I took some thick steel wire, cut off a piece longer than I needed, and bent it into this shape. I took a piece of tape to mark where the body of the faucet would start. I then measured out a long strip of paper to the right width and started wrapping it around until I had the right thickness. I glued the end of the strip down with glue stick. I repeated the process with another strip of paper to make the handle, and then glued it to the side with super glue. I also added a small round piece of paper to the end to finish up the raw edge. I finished the handle by gluing a small piece of steel to the end. I used a piece of a pin, but you can also use thin steel wire. Once dry, I painted it black and stuck it in the hole we made in the countertop. To make the range hood, I make 3 pieces for the main structure. 1 small piece for the front, 1 slightly larger for the top, and 1 big piece that will sit on at an angle. I also make a strip of wood to go at the bottom on the inside to finish off the raw edge. Paint it white before gluing it down. You can also paint the back white if you want it to look more finished. Start by gluing down the top and front pieces and connect them with the larger piece. Add some details to the top and sides to make it match with the cabinets. I considered placing one in the middle going straight down to make it blend in even more, but I decided against it. I'll insert a picture of it anyway so that you can see if you'd prefer that look. Once done, paint it white. You can now glue the bottom cabinets and the countertop in place. It's funny, as I was making this, I got to this exact moment and thought, yes, I'm finally done, and then I realized my mistake. Do you see what's missing? Time for the final step, the induction cooktop. I took a sheet of plastic and cut out a square. I then used a blade to make 4 circles in different sizes. I painted the back black and glued it to the countertop above the stove. And we're done! I hope you liked this video and that it wasn't too messy to follow. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Do you like longer videos or do you prefer them short? I tried to cut it down as much as I could, but it was still a lot longer than I would have liked. Overall, I'm really happy with the result. If you make anything similar, I'd love it if you tagged me so I can see all your creations. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!